Oh boy, okay. So, hi, my name is Leighton Gray. I am the co-creator, co-writer, and head of dads for Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator. And today I'm here to talk to you about something very important and very near and dear to my heart, and that's memes. Or more specifically, how to write content for the internet without embarrassing yourself too much, which harder than it looks. First step is to not do this. Dream Daddy was a product of the internet, and there was a lot of intentionality in how we wrote, marketed it, and designed it to be geared towards online communities like Tumblr and Twitter and YouTube. And we did all this stuff on paper from years and years of spending a lot of time analyzing how the internet works, and especially looking at how fan communities operate, and it really paid off, thankfully. The game has done very well, and I'm very happy about that, and I'm really glad that everyone's kissing dads. But the thing is that writing stuff for internet audiences successfully is not just as easy as shoving memes in there, because the best way to alienate your players is to do stuff like this. This is a whole Twitter account that collects brands being just horrifically embarrassing. They just, someone gets paid to do this, and they think it's a great idea. But the thing is, obviously nobody likes it when a 35-year-old PR dude tells you that it is on fleek to buy a roast beef sandwich. And we talk about this in Dream Daddy a little bit when you ask our 18-year-old daughter to explain to you what memes are, and here's me gratuitously shoving screenshots from Dream Daddy into this PowerPoint. And so you say, "Can you explain memes to me?" And your daughter says, "Dad, it's complicated. See, memes are inside jokes shared by a bunch of people that get less funny the more people do it. So the problem is that by the time a meme gets to you, Dad, all of us yous have already done the joke to death. And what's worse is that movies and TV and video games will try to jump in on a meme train, but just based on how long it takes to make them, the meme will be long dead by the time it comes out. So it just states that it isn't funny." And then of course you say, "Oh shit, what up?" We are extremely creative and original writers. So, if trying to incorporate memes into your work is the kiss of death, how do we effectively write content that exists adjacent to internet culture without directly referencing it? And to talk about that and give it a little bit of context, I'm going to discuss every game developer's favorite topic, art history. Humor me, I dropped out of art school. Thank you, wow. Now I can feel like my short time in art school actually went towards something and was not just a massive waste of money. So first, let's talk about modernism, which was the first major art movement of the 20th century that focused on defying the traditional ideas of the 19th century, and it encouraged artists to try new things and explore unorthodox ideas, and it was basically just like, we're gonna throw all the old shit into the dump. And artists like Picasso, Duchamp, Kandinsky, and writers like James Joyce and Marcel Proust were perfect examples of modernism because they were just all doing things that nobody had seen before. Sincere exploration. Avant-garde was what it was originally called, because basically art movements are always named retroactively. It's more of a marketing move than anything else. So next was postmodernism, as we were really approaching the mid to late 20th century. And while modernism was more of an art movement than anything else, postmodernism was a philosophy movement as well as an art movement. And as a whole, it can pretty much just be defined by a heavy sense of cynicism and irony towards everything. There was a huge emphasis on nihilism and the idea that truth is a subjective construct, and it made things like parody and pastiche popular because there was a big element of intertextuality and referencing other things. So a really great example of a postmodernist movie is Scream, because all the characters are relying on, this intertextual knowledge of other horror movies. A good example of a TV show would be South Park, because it's like the only way that you can be right is if you don't care about anything too much. But a lot has changed since postmodernism became a thing. And one of the biggest changes has been the advent of the internet, because it's just completely revolutionized the way that we create, share, and consume content. And postmodernism doesn't really give us the tools that we need to have like a meaningful relationship with the internet. So, on a sliding scale of sincerity and cynicism, with modernism being very sincere and cynicism, or postmodernism being very cynical, what does that mean for the future art movement, or the one that we're in right now? This big jumbly mess between the two. And the answer to that question, and the key to unlocking the internet, is metamodernism, which is defined by ironic detachment with sincere engagement. So, yeah, it sounds about right. And so the Metamodernist Manifesto is this great document that was co-written by artist Luke Turner and the man, the meme, the legend himself, Shia LaBeouf. And if you will recall, a couple of years ago, when Shia LaBeouf did that thing that was like, I am not famous anymore, where he sat in a room with a bag over his head and people lined up for hours to come sit in the room and they were able to do whatever they wanted to him. Which on the surface looks like, that celebs are at it again, just being wacky, right? But if you look at it from the perspective of a piece of metamodernist art, which was the goal, the piece is really about confronting people with how we view celebrity and how we interact with celebrities online. So people would go into the room and they'd be like, I'm about to be in the room with Shia LaBeouf, this is gonna be a hoot. And they'd walk in and he was crying for a lot of it. And they'd suddenly be confronted with, oh shit, Shia LaBeouf is a real person who also has feelings, and everything that I know about him is extrapolated off the tiniest bit of data and warped by the media. And so many people would go in and like hold his hand and cry with him. And it's a really beautiful piece when you think about it. And I don't have time to talk about that more, but if you get a chance, I highly recommend that you look up the other performance art, installation art pieces that Shia LaBeouf has done with metamodernism, because like they did ones where they would tweet a thing like, meet us at this location and we will go literally anywhere you take us and do whatever you want us to do. And they like flew him to Alaska. Weird shit. So anyways, I want to break down some of the tenets of metamodernism for you, and then we're going to explore those and how we can apply them to your work. So first of all, it's defined by an oscillation between poles, namely sincerity and cynicism. It acknowledges that both are equally as important, and you really just can't have one without the other. It's sort of like salted caramel. You got the salty, you got the sweet, everyone loves it, it's delicious. Metamodern media aims to collapse distances between people by emphasizing the things that we have in common as well as the ways that we're different. It acknowledges layered identities and realities, meaning that it kind of delves into how we present different facets of our personality, and especially how that's complicated by our access to social media. And finally, it's kind of defined by a sense of radical optimism in the face of years of like this sneering postmodernist hipster, I'm too good for anything. So ultimately, metamodernism is the source of all internet culture. It is the reason memes exist, and it informs all the sensibilities of some of the most popular media right now. For example, Rick and Morty, Childish Gambino's music, BoJack Horseman, Bo Burnham's stand-up, Black Mirror is a big one. And finally, Undertale is a really great example of metamodernist media. So, here's how we can apply these principles to your work. First of all, sincerity wrapped in cynicism was a guiding tenet for writing Dream Daddy. And I think it's pretty well summed up by this quote. I know that the art I'm creating may seem silly, even stupid, or that might have been done before, but that doesn't mean that this isn't serious. And I can think of no other game that embodies this better than Hatchful Boyfriend. Which, if you're unfamiliar, is the dating sim where you play as a human girl dating birds. And what's funny about that is, as low budget as it looks and as silly as it sounds, it's widely regarded as one of the best dating sims ever. It was like universally loved. People just praised how well written it was and how it had this sprawling, deep lore. And so we kind of borrowed borrowed this for Dream Daddy. Hatoful Boyfriend was a huge inspiration. And it was a really particularly effective technique that worked for us of setting the player's expectations really low with the premise of something that's silly or maybe kind of weird, you know, dating birds, kissing dads, and then kind of doing a bait and switch with a story that's actually meaningful. Because let's face it, it's really hard to just tell a straightforward, serious, heartwarming story on the internet. Like, we have to steep it in a few layers of irony to make it palatable, because I think we're all just kind of jaded and hardened against sentimental stuff. Like, if we had called Dream Daddy Favorable Fathers, and it was about, you know, being a single dad and raising your child, like, I don't think it would have enjoyed the success that it has. So you can kind of see this in our game where you meet this goth dad who loves shopping at Hot Topic and, you know, has a Victorian mansion and who writes his own leather-bound Naruto fanfiction. On his next date, he's like giving a monologue in a graveyard about how death helps him appreciate his life more, and he has like a very sweet relationship with his son. And by the fact that we set this up as like, this is gonna be real silly, it's kind of a sucker punch when they say things that are meaningful, and that creates like a very special experience for a player, because it's that element of surprise and what is comedy but a series of surprises. And even though the game is about dating dads, it also, you know, beneath it actually is about being a single father. And so next we have collapsing distances. And because the internet is great for connecting us with people from all over the world, metamodernism places a heavy emphasis on exploring not only our differences, but what we have in common. And this is where what I will lovingly call hashtag relatable content comes from. Because at their core, memes are really just super condensed storytelling to communicate a universal truth. Like, we all do the thing where you stand in the shower and you like fill your mouth with water and then you like spit it out like you're a water fountain. Like, yeah, we all do that. And if you say that you don't do it, you're lying. So yeah, it is kind of just that general feeling of like, I thought I was the only one who did that, but you do it too, and now I feel special. So further extrapolating that kind of memey thing into a video game narrative is just as simple as writing truthfully and authentically. And a lot of the stuff that I'm gonna say in this talk is gonna sound like gross from like, this was all done with like marketing in mind. But truly, like, Dream Daddy was a very genuine game that was written from a lot of personal experiences, and it kind of taught us that writing what you know doesn't always have to be taken literally. Like, obviously, neither co-creator Vernon Shaw or I are gay dads, but we were able to put so many of our real relationships and feelings into this game, and people really resonate with that. Just the most important thing you can do is just be honest with your storytelling. And one of the things that we did post-announcement were these character introductions, so people could kind of get a feel for who the characters were. And they were actually modeled around tag me memes, like this one, where, you know, it's like shitty drawings and then people are like, mom friend, small bean, which one are you? So you can borrow from memes without directly referencing them. And it worked really well and people responded well to it. And so we ended up posting this blank version of it so people could, a lot of people were tweeting us drawings of their dad's sonas and we were like, let's just cut out the middleman and give it to them. And so what ended up happening is people just started memeing it anyways. They just kind of like, they ran with it. And it, like, our Twitter notifications for a couple of days were exclusively this. But it just kind of goes to show that, like, we could have just as easily tried to shove some memes just pulled from the internet and we would have seemed super out of touch. But by borrowing from the sensibilities that create memes, organic. So, metamodernism also stresses an understanding of other perspectives. And that kind of goes hand in hand with inclusivity and diversity. And when I was submitting the pitch for this talk, I considered doing one about writing inclusivity, and then I realized that that talk was gonna be less than 60 seconds, because all I really have to say about it is just fucking do it. Right, diversity? I'm a white lady, you don't need to clap for me, like, support people who are white women writing this. But write diverse characters and represent diverse groups of people, include people, don't use humor that punches down. Like, and if you're not sure how to write perspectives that aren't your own, talk to people who do. Like, the biggest part of game development, I think, is trusting other people who know how to do what you don't know how to do, and that applies to art and writing diversity and things that are honest and true to people's lived experiences without speaking over them. So find people, find women of color, find people of color, find queer people and people who are different from you, and ask them what, like, don't just have a one-time conversation, keep an ongoing dialogue with your work, and make sure, ask what they think about it, because there are things that you know that you don't know, and then there are the things that you don't know that you don't know, and that's a dangerous area to be in. And then just give them money for working on your thing. What I'm saying is hire more people from minority groups, because you're going to get better work out of it that represents larger ideas. And also, honestly, at this point, if you're gonna keep doing the this is only straight white men, that's the whole thing, it's creatively bankrupt, guys. This we're done. Let's get some variety here. And I also don't want to hear that writing narratives that are inclusive is some kind of niche topic, because if it's any indication, Dream Daddy was massively successful with a large group of people, and it really spread across all walks of life. And the thing is, there are these huge communities of people who have been deprived of the content that represents them for so long. And I'm a member of that demographic, and I will throw money at anything that represents me and the people I know well. It's pretty easy, just do it. I highly encourage you to do it. But on that topic, let's segue into talking about how this intersects with the idea of layered identities. Obviously, the way that we present ourselves varies on who we're talking to, and the way that you tell a story to your parents is very different from the way that you tell a story to your friends. And on the same side of the coin, the way that you post on Facebook is very different from the way that you probably post on your private vent Twitter. One of the cool things about metamodernism is that it encourages us to really explore how we express these different facets of our personalities, not only through social media, but video games as well. I know I am not the only person in this room who spends an inordinate amount of time on character creators, right? Okay, thank you. And there's this community of people who I think really want more gaming experiences that let them explore themselves, games that can teach them something about who they are, or give them an opportunity to explore their sexuality or gender when they might not be able to do so in real life. And our goal with writing the player dad that you play as to kiss other dads, and designing the character creator was to give people lots of options to customize your dad, and we wanted to make sure that we were including a wide variety of skin tones and facial features and body types, options to make your dad trans, as well as more androgynous and feminine options to choose from. And there are a couple of choices in the very beginning of the game that really don't do much aside from change a couple of pronouns and a few sentences later on, but you can choose whether your dead spouse was a man or a woman, and you can also choose, here's pictures, they're different, but you can also choose whether your daughter Amanda is biologically your child or if she was adopted. And the thing is, it didn't have much of an effect on the rest of the game, but it had a huge effect on how people interacted with it. We had so many people who just expressed how happy they were that they were able to choose what their character's sexuality was, whether they were bi or gay or whatever. And that also, it provides an opportunity to flesh out the story beyond the time that they are playing the game. And I think with how much of people's interactions with games happen outside of the game in fan communities, whether it's fan fiction or fan art or just talking to their friends about it, doing whatever you can to encourage that level of role play and exploration beyond the game, I think is really, really helpful for getting it to spread across the internet. And finally, radical optimism. And I like to describe this recent shift over the past couple of years as the progression from the popularity of me IRL memes, which are all about being depressed and sad, and to wholesome memes, which are all about dogs and loving your friends and supporting your parents. And right now I think people are just really craving uplifting stuff that's funny and silly, because things are kind of dire right now, and we need it. And when we were writing the game, it was really important to us, like I said, that none of the humor punched down. And we tried really hard to keep everything positive and, again, inclusive, because jokes that punch down just hurt and alienate a large part of your player base. And also, it's just low-hanging fruit, and again, really lazy to do that. Like, I know you are more creative than easy targets. And so we tried to take this same approach to our social media account. And we always tried to come from a place of positivity and support, which ranged from how we responded to fan art to how we were responding to players who were angry about bugs. And so we thought that the best way to do this would be to introduce this voice to the Dream Daddy Twitter that was just of like a loving, positive dad. And the really cool thing about that is that like people responded to it so well that we saw this shift in the way that people replied to the tweets, where everyone just started supporting each other and being like really loving and kind, which for an account with like 75,000 followers is kind of rare for it to be that civil. But like, people were just looking at younger artists and being like, you go, you're doing it, I'm so proud of you. And I think that's a really special thing to be able to start setting that tone of how your players interact both with you and other people. So what this all builds up to is that metamodernism creates an environment for organically shareable content. Let's talk about it. Because that means getting your players to market your game for you. Because nobody wants to be marketed to, especially while they're playing a game. And the same demographic that responds positively to metamodernism also are a bunch of young people who hate late-stage capitalism. So you gotta be really careful. And a big part of getting an idea to travel on the internet is by really mastering the elevator pitch. And I do not mean stop at every floor waiting for people to get on and get off and you're late for work because everybody's getting on and off. Like, you need to get it down to an honest-to-God, under 30 seconds pitch. Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator, the game where you play as a hot cat dad and your goal is to meet and romance other hot dads while raising your 18-year-old daughter. Soon I'm gonna get to the point of like, guy reading medicine side effects in a commercial. I'm almost there. But Dream Daddy co-creator calls this compressible content theory, this idea that the more compressible and easy to explain your idea is, the further that it'll travel on the internet. And this, I think, really helped us out because it's kind of exactly what it says on the tin, Dream Daddy. And with the game, we tried to create what we call screen capable moments, things that we engineered so people would want to post a screen cap to Twitter or Facebook or to tell their friends in a group chat. So some of the things we had pretty commonly tweeted at us or that we saw in memes were things like this line. Relatable. Good old blasphemy. Really does well with the teens. Being lazy. We all feel that. And this cake that you baked for your daughter ended up getting stolen by the common white girl Twitter account, and it got like 20,000 retweets, which is the one time I'm never gonna be happy about people stealing our stuff. But it just kind of goes to show, like, you do this stuff that relates to what people want to hear, and like being honest, like, I have anxiety and depression, and I want to make content for people who also have anxiety and depression, and are super sweaty and nervous all the time, just like I am right now. But the thing is when you can get people to market your game for you, people are more likely to share it with their friends because it doesn't feel as inorganic as just a company being like, buy our game. So this was a Tumblr post that was literally just screenshots of our Steam page, which was also very carefully written for this exact kind of scenario. And this ended up getting 200,000 notes. We had nothing to do with this person. They just kind of did it for us. It just goes to show metamodernism. It's creating content that exists adjacent to internet culture without directly referencing it. And now that you're all kind of familiar with the tenets of it, I hope that you can start noticing it in the media that you consume, because there really is a common thread with stuff that's popular right now, and it all kind of comes from this same place. And now that you understand this, and you're making your work, and you can insert metamodernist themes into it, I hope you know that that makes you the most on-fleek bae of all.